Hello everyone, so this week we are doing the Japanese progress update number 4 already. I can't believe it's been 4 months already, but here we are. This week I'm mainly going to talk about Anki, which is something I probably mentioned last month, but I definitely talked about on Twitter. So if you don't follow me on Twitter already, all the links will be in the description box below. The reason why I started to use Anki is because I came across an article about learning kanji in 97 days, and I will link that in the description box below. So I read through the article and it explains how you can learn 2,200 kanji in 97 days using Anki. And when they say learn, it's to be able to recognize each kanji and being able to associate them with an English keyword or translation, if you will, but you're not actually able to write them, nor are you able to read them. So that's very important to specify. So the objective of this challenge, I think, is not to know kanji, properly 100%, but just to be able to recognize them. And I think the main goal is to first be able to read a little bit of Japanese. It's a starting point, obviously. It doesn't mean that if you learn all these kanji, you will be able to learn Japanese fluently, but it's a starting point. And the other sort of objective is to be able to just familiarize yourself with the kanji, so they look less like, unfamiliar symbols, but actually something that you've come across before. So it does give a good sense of familiarity with the kanji. So yeah, that's what I've been doing for about a month, and I did a little bit of research into what people thought about this challenge. So there was I think a fair amount of people that were for this challenge and other people that thought that that was actually bullcrap. So they were clearly against that. And I will go through a couple of the positives and negatives, which I made a note of here. The positives that I've had was to not have to learn the vocabulary and what the kanji looks like. So what that means is that if you're learning vocabulary in Japanese later on, you will not have to also learn the kanji, but just focus on the word and how it's actually written and how to pronounce it without having to worry about knowing the kanji, because you're quite familiar with all the kanji already. So it just means that half of the work is done. I mean, I don't know if it's half, but it's a part of the job that it's done. The second advantage is that you might be able to understand written Japanese even if you can't pronounce the words. And this is sort of like a theory, if I may say, because I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I haven't finished this challenge yet, so I don't have the hindsight to actually give an opinion or an informed opinion on that. But if you do know whether that's true or not, that you can read Japanese and not actually be able to pronounce the words, then do let me know, because I know some Japanese people or learners of Japanese watch these videos, so let me know. That would be very useful. And the third point is looking at written Japanese looks less scary because they look like familiar characters rather than weird shapes, and that's sort of what I mentioned at the beginning, which is it gets more familiar, because when you don't know, if you're looking at an alphabet which you're not familiar with, your eye doesn't really know where to look. And I think if you are able to recognize most, if not all, the symbols, then even if you don't comprehend everything, at least you're just more familiar. It doesn't look as scary, and I think that's one of the advantages of learning kanji like that. And the fourth advantage, which I wrote, which I thought was actually interesting, is that doing this challenge is good for people who like to have a specific task, which they can do every day without having to think, what should I do next, or what should I do today? So that means like every day at least one thing that you have to do, which is, going through the Anki deck, which again, I will explain into more detail a bit later on my screen behind me. But before we do that, I also wanted to sort of mention the criticism that I've seen. I wrote down 5. So the first one is that you cram a lot of information into your head in a very short amount of time. And a lot of people were talking about burnout. And so far, I mean, I've been doing it for a month and I've gone through about 520 kanji. I didn't feel like I was burnt out, though it does take a lot of time. So I could understand how people would feel like it's a bit overwhelming, because you do spend an hour a day doing that. The second disadvantage is that you're not actually able to read the kanji out loud. And people use that as a pretext to say that this challenge is useless, but it's not the point of this challenge to be able to read kanji, but rather to be able to recognize kanji, and afterwards you learn how to actually read the kanji and how to write them. So it sort of divides the task. So I felt like this point wasn't very pertinent, but then once I've done the challenge entirely, I can let you know how much of an issue that was. Third point, and this one is actually a very interesting one, is that it can be very demotivating to learn huge amounts of kanji and you will burn out. So I sort of mentioned that, but the motivation part is interesting because I do understand that for some people it can be very tedious to be doing 1 hour a day of kanji because it is kind of tiring, you know. At the end of a session you do know that your brain has worked hard, but I think motivation is very personal and some people will be motivated by this. Others will not. I definitely feel motivated because being able to recognize a lot of kanji is very motivating, I feel. So I definitely don't have this issue, but I would understand how someone might just find this very tedious. The fourth point is you don't really learn in context. This one is true. I'm actually not sure what to think about this yet because obviously I haven't finished the challenge yet and I haven't, you know, started putting what I've learned into practice, meaning I haven't started to read because I don't think you can start reading with only these 500 kanji because kanji is sort of like, you know, everything or you don't sort of thing, and the order in which the kanji are learned is not by level, but they're just taught by radicals, which is a bit technical, so I'm not going to go into much detail about this, maybe in another video when I finish the challenge, but it means that you don't actually learn the easy kanji first, you just learn kanji in an order that is decided by the person that created the deck. And the fifth and last point, and I think this one is very true, is that it takes so much time that it's easy to only do that, meaning only do kanji learning, and put on pause the actual language learning practice. And this has definitely been the case for me because I focused only on the kanji, which means that I haven't done much language practice, actually very little. So this is something that for next month I will have to work on because I want to maybe be able to do fewer kanji a day and maybe do more actual language learning practice because I don't want to just finish the challenge and then have to learn everything back again. Because, you know, that's how it works in language learning. You know, if you don't practice, then you just forget. So I'm happy to do an entire video based on that deck and challenge if you're interested, but just to kind of let you know about my experience. So the way I've done it is that I will not be able to learn all the kanji in 97 days because I found that that was a little bit too intense to do every single day 20 kanji. So something I did is that when I was struggling with remembering the ones I learned the days before, and when I was also struggling to learn the new ones, is that I would stop learning new kanji but actually focusing on just reviewing them for like 1 or 2 days. So that gives my brain a break and that makes sure that I can actually, you know, revise properly and focus on just reviewing them, because there's no point really in overwhelming your brain with information if you're not, you know, fully comfortable or confident with what you've learned so far. So I think this challenge is not meant to be followed strictly. You just kind of have to adapt and follow your guts, really. That's what I've been doing. But I'm still hoping that in 2 months I'll be able to finish. So I think what I will do probably is during the summer, when I will have much more time, is to do maybe 30 or 40 kanji a day, even though that means that I will not be able to know them properly. But then there will be, when I finish the deck, there will be this period of review, of constant review, because when you've learned all the kanji, you still have to review them every day. I don't know for how long, but probably for a month or 2 or 3 months after you finish the challenge. So it doesn't end after 97 days. So now I will show you how this deck works using Anki. So hopefully you're able to see what I'm going to be doing. The kanji is a little bit small, but this is one kanji, and what you have to do is whenever you're presented with a kanji is to say out loud what you think the translation in English is for this kanji, and I believe this one is possess. I'm not sure yet if I'm right or wrong, but let's just show the answer. No, this is bribe, so obviously I forgot this one. So what happens if you got it wrong is that you can just click on again, and then it says 10 minutes here. So again, in 10 minutes means that they will ask you about this kanji in 10 minutes again, which is a shame because I had kept a good streak. Anyway, so again, and then you move on to another one. So I think this one is true. Yeah, so that's true. And then if I got it, you know, quite easily, I can just say good. I don't put easy because I like the kanji to come up quite often, so I can review them regularly, but you know, you can click on good, and so on and so forth. So every day you will be reviewing kanji, and usually I've got about 100 reviews a day, and they are actually quite quick because usually about 80% of them you remember, and then you just have to review some of the ones you have forgotten, and then you have the new ones. But in total, depending on how my brain or how effective my brain is, it takes me about, let's say, an hour, sometimes 40 minutes if I'm quite quick. So it does take a bit of time, but you don't have to do everything in one sitting. You can start on the bus, do some in the morning, and you can just sort of spread it out across the day. So that's essentially all I want to talk about for today. So my objectives for next month will be to balance learning the kanji and actually doing language learning, which, as I said, I haven't been doing enough. And I'm not sure how I'm going to do it yet. Maybe I will reduce it to 15 new kanji a day because I don't want to slow down too much, because I think this challenge, if you do it across 6 months, it can be quite easy to give up a bit too early, and I obviously don't want to do that because I've gone through about a quarter of the deck, so I'm quite proud about myself. And yeah, so I want to be able to still do it, but maybe a bit less, so I've got more time to do actual language practice. And my second challenge will also be to manage my time, because I'm going to be very busy in June with work and YouTube and all these things. But I don't want this to be an excuse which would be like, I don't have time, so I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to force myself to do it every day, or at least every 2 days. If one day I need to take a day off, I guess that's not the end of the world, but still I want to be able to do that very regularly. I don't want to, break this pattern. So yeah, so that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. And again, if you have any questions about Anki or the deck in particular, I might actually do a video about it. Maybe I will wait a little bit to finish the deck, so I've got the insight and I can actually share my experience with you. But I might still do a video about it once I've progressed enough to have a bit of a more informed opinion. So yeah, do let me know, and I will see you next week, and bye.